Welcome to Condor 3 Epics. You're about to experience an hours-long soaring flight in the Duo Discus 20-metre multi-seat sailplane. Along the way, you'll learn how the pilot makes this possible without the help of an engine. It's a tour of some Patagonian mountain ranges as we round the various turn points at small remote airfields. There's a concise overview of our journey coming up in just a moment. I'm Tim Parrish, and I hope you enjoy checking this all out. This flight over West Patagonia, a region of Chile, has 5 legs, indicated by blue lines on the map. Each one turns red as I talk about it. The first red one's up there already, up near the top. A fairly high aerotow is necessary to take us near a large mountain slope, upwind of the airfield. We release and make our way to the first turn point by hopping from slope to slope against a stiff and quite rough headwind. After rounding turn point 1 at Santa Lucia, we head south at speed by using the air that is flowing up and over the large and steep mountain slopes. After rounding turn point 2 at La Junta, we continue south-southwest in much the same way. However, the terrain and the wind let us down halfway along, and we have to struggle for a while in some very mediocre thermal lift. After recovering and finally getting a decent climb, it's an easy run to the turn point. After rounding turn point 3 at Lago San Rafael, we head back nor-northeast and soon find ourselves among snow-capped ridges and huge ravines. However, there is the occasional strong thermal that makes it easy to look ahead from over 8,000 feet and spot good terrain for ridge soaring. After rounding turn point 4 at Cisne Medio, it's not long before the flight computer indicates that a glide to the finish is possible without using lift. I decide to cut it fine, since ridge lift should still be available most of the way. With excess height in hand, we end up approaching the finish very fast. Watch right to the end to see the scary degree of wing flexing that was happening in the rough air. Anyway, it's time to strap in and start our pre-takeoff checks. Here we go. Controls, full and free movement, just checking for that. Harness tight and secure. And there's the air brakes, so we want them closed and locked. No flaps on this aircraft. Outside, we've got a bit of a crosswind from the right, although there's not a whole lot of wind down here in the valley. And there's the rally tow plane that will be taking us up later. Alright, trim fully forward. There goes the stick. Checking instruments now. We've got the flight computer running in the middle of the panel, and the altimeter is set for our altitude above mean sea level, and it looks like we'll be starting our circuit at about 1,500 because of that altitude. And you can hear the tow plane starting up now. It'll be coming across in a second. And in a moment someone will hold our wingtip for us and we'll be off. And here we go. Just holding a bit of forward stick in here to get the tail off. Trying to keep the wings level as well. And we're off the deck. Just waiting for the tow plane to unstick now. There it goes. This is going to be quite a long tow, although we won't be showing all of it. We're about halfway up at this point. There's a little bit of turbulence in the air, as you can see. The aircraft's moving around somewhat. It's not me, that's the airflow. I'm just trying to keep behind the tug. There's another view from the ground as we go overhead. Heading upwind, so we're just turning upwind here. Takes a little bit of work to stay behind the tow plane and all the turbulence, but not long now. The airfield is directly behind us there. And he wants us gone, so we better release. There we go. And we're off. Tow plane throttles back. So here we are in the Duo Discus, the Schempp-Hirth Duo Discus. We've just released and taken the undercarriage up there. We're heading for the start gate. The air's quite rough and it's quite a stiff headwind we're flying against as well. It's about 24 knots. So we need to get to the top of this slope to our right here. And we've made the crest a few minutes ago, so we'll just continue heading upwind. We've got our sights set on that snowy peak straight in front there, just behind the yaw string. I have flown a two-seater in the past, a fiberglass two-seater. It's the Twin Aster. I was on an assistant instructor's course at Waikerie Gliding Club. I came across that ship. I was quite surprised to see Maury Bradney approach and strap in with me. I recognised him from photos I'd seen in the Australian Gliding magazine from the 1970s. I was quite impressed actually, being in the company of world-class pilot of that era. The Twin was quite a good solid trainer with a respectable cross-country performance. Nothing that could quite compare to this ship though that we're flying at the moment. This really is a competitive 20-metre two-seater, the Duo Discus. So we've got plenty of height and we're going to head straight for the turn point now. That's at Santa Lucia. We'll need to get through that gap ahead of us. And here we are approaching the sector. Just a few seconds to go. We'll see it turn green when we cross it. There it is. Now we'll take a look and nothing's coming, so round we go and we'll head down the valley. The Duo Discus was initially manufactured by Schempp-Hirth in Germany, but production was later shifted to the Autokan factory in the Czech Republic. And the first flight of this machine was in 1993, apparently, being a replacement for the Janus. That was a high-performance two-seater of the time that I can remember reading about in the 70s and 80s. So the Discus has remained popular for a long time, and quite a lot were built, 500 by August 2007, and over 750 by September 2023. Anyway, we've made it to the next turn point at La Junta, and we're just about to head out of the sector now. And we're heading off on the third leg of 5. And once again we're making our way along a series of quite large mountain slopes with a stiff breeze coming from right to left. So for the next little while we won't have any trouble staying up. Can probably put a bit of speed on in actual fact. Although here the terrain has lowered a little, so we just need to cut the speed back a fraction so we don't lose too much height. And we've been in the air for about an hour and 11 minutes by the looks of it, averaging 78.6 knots, so starting to get a little bit of speed up now. Okay, while we're cruising along here, I might just mention a few basic design features of the Duo Discus. It's primarily a glass fibre reinforced plastic construction with some carbon fibre components as well, and it has a large single piece side hinged canopy. The wings, as you know, it's a 20 metre and it's in 4 pieces, so that makes it easier to transport around, I guess, more manageable. And the later models of this aircraft incorporated winglets. It's a T-tail design, of course, with fixed horizontal stabiliser and double panel air brakes on the top surface, and there's automatic control connections while you're rigging it, so that's in common with a lot of modern aircraft. It has integral water ballast tanks, and they have a total capacity of around 198 litres, so gives it a decent wing loading for cross-country flying. And at this point we've found our way onto a unique feature of the landscape. It's an isolated mountain that's quite steep, quite smooth, and we're just using the ridge lift for a while to try and gain some height up the face. But there's some clouds, so it does appear to be thermals coming off the rocks. And right around here, yep, there it is. So we'll try and crank right into this one and try and make the summit in thermal lift, which will be somewhat quicker than the slope lift, I think, in this case. And having made it to the top and avoided the cloud that was surrounding the very tip of the summit, we'll just fly across the top of the slope and have a look out in front of us, and we'll need to edge left, I think, to stay on track. Just for now we're getting a little bit of extra height from what ridge lift remains over the top. And once again, we've moved on quite a way over that area of water, and we're once again looking down a long line of quite steep, reasonably large slopes, so that's handy. We can put a bit of speed on as well, knowing that there's going to be lift there, quite a bit. And here we can see that we're about 138 kilometres or so from the turn point at Lago San Rafael, and we're closing at about just under 80 knots. There's a couple of variants of this machine. There's the Duo Discus T that features a retractable two-stroke turbo sustainer engine, so that presumably would enable self-launch capability as well. And there's the Duo Discus X, which was produced in 2005. That introduced landing flaps that were coupled to the air brakes, and it had improved air brake design and a lower sprung undercarriage, which makes it more resilient for training, I guess, for the occasional hard landing. Now things are getting a little interesting here. We're almost down to 4,000 feet, which is not great, so we badly need a little bit of thermal lift, but it doesn't appear to be any for some distance, so we're just going to have to tiptoe along. Cut back to around best glide speed. We're onto something here, but it's looking a bit mediocre, but we have no choice for the moment. We have to stick with it, try and gain a few hundred feet so that we have a few more options. Trying again in the other direction, and it seems like we've found something a little better here. And you can see in the altimeter we're approaching 4.5, so we're gradually getting out of trouble. There's the cloud up there. At this point things are looking a little safer, we can continue on our way with a number of other fairly steep ridges coming up ahead of us there. And it would be possible to put down on some of those mud flats down there. I don't know how you'd go getting the aircraft out though. Be interesting. This is quite a nice looking cloud here, but we're not far from cloud base at this point, so we'll just fly straight through, I think, and convert that small patch of lift back into the speed. We'll shut the nose down for a while. There we go. Some more likely looking ridges coming up. Starting to look rather picturesque out there. And there's some decent slopes up ahead, so we should be alright for staying airborne. Not to mention some quite well developed cumulus now. The thermal conditions are certainly better than they were when we started. Let's talk about some competition history of this aircraft. It's been a pretty dominant competitor in the 20 metre two-seater category, and it's often won or placed in international competition since the mid-90s. It also won a few competitions in the European Championships and the US 20 metre nationals it did very well in as well. More recently, in 2025, a Duo Discus won the British 20 metre two-seat national championship. And here we are, just made it into the turn sector at Lago San Rafael. And we're turning back towards the mountains. And here we are, heading north on the fourth leg. This is another fairly long leg. In fact, I think it's the second longest leg of the task. And although there's obviously plenty of slopes around, we'll try and make use of thermal lift as much as we can, just to get a bit of a safety buffer above the peaks and those deep ravines and valleys. I might just run through a few performance figures that I've pulled out of a Condor 3 for this aircraft. It's got a maximum wing loading of 45.7 kilograms per square metre, which is quite handy for good cross-country speed in strong weather. Talking about speed, the maximum speed, or the VNE, of this aircraft is 142 knots. That's 263 kilometres per hour. If you don't have any water in the wings, you can get this plane down to about 36 knots. It's 67 kilometres an hour. And also with no water, you can achieve a minimum sinking speed through the air of just 1 knot, about 0.52 metres per second. And it has a glide ratio of 46:1 at 50 knots. And here we are, having just exited a thermal right up at cloud base. We're just skirting underneath the clouds now, maintaining just enough speed to stay out of the fluff. And while we're pushing ahead over some flatter terrain here, I might just mention some interesting bits and pieces, anecdotes about this aircraft. It's got a reputation for being quite predictable and with gentle flying characteristics, which have proven to be very suitable for training. Would you believe this aircraft has had a role in Hollywood? The Duo Discus was featured in the 1999 movie The Thomas Crown Affair. Regarding training and club activities, this plane is considered the premier cross-country trainer for many clubs, and some of them have even given it the nickname the Monster for its ability to handle quite demanding cross-country flying. And here we are back on the slopes again, making our way towards Seasoney Medio, the next turn point. It's a good strong thermal. They often are a bit stronger off the sunlit faces of the mountains, even in the same weather as might exist over the flat. They tend to kick off a bit stronger off of the slopes. And we're still in a slightly less windy weather system here, so the slope lift it's there, but it's not super strong. But at least the slopes are steep and tall. Makes it pretty straightforward to stay in contact with the crest. I can see a slope up there in the distance that we'll be aiming for. and for a change some actual landable fields down there. Now this terrain is quite tall, but it's very irregular, so it's sometimes hard to predict exactly where the lift will be. Oh, look, there's some balloons down there, just over the left-hand side of the cockpit there. Nice touch. And we've got a little off track, but we've made it back into the turn point sector, so we're just flying over Seasoney Medio right now. And we're heading home on the fifth and last leg. And we're well into the windy weather system now. It's blowing about 24 knots from left to right across these slopes, and quite rough. So it's going to be a bit of a wild ride. You watch. And we'll have slope lift nearly all the way to the finish line. This will be the last time we brush with the cloud base, I think. We'll be on final glide fairly soon. We've just slowed a little here in order to get back up near the crest, where the best slope lift is. And you can see the ridges stretching away in front of us. And at this point we've got a bit of water to cross, but we're heading for that gap up ahead. There's somewhat left of the heading we want, but once we get round the corner up there, it'll be flat out down the ridge line. And there goes the water. It's dumping the water. We want to get rid of that by the time we make it to the finish, which is the little Chilean commune of Palena. Where I presume Spanish is spoken, as they do in Chile, South American Spanish. Oh, look at the rough air, bending the wings just there. And we're barrelling along at about 120, 130 knots. Quickly closing with the finish line that's coming up. You can see it on the flight computer there. Pull up as we finish and close off the water. There's the airfield. Our undercarriage is down and locked, and we'll just let our speed settle out at about 60 knots and trim it for 60. And we'll turn onto base leg at this point. It would have been nice to go a little further downwind because of our height, but the terrain won't allow that. It's coming up to meet us right here. So we'll just pull on a little bit more brake, line up for a final approach. And we're close to touchdown now. A little foam, but never mind. We've made it back, and that was quite an epic flight, all around some very mountainous terrain in West Patagonia. I hope you enjoyed that flight. Why not try some other part of the world now by checking out one of these 3 videos? Each one documents an epic journey, of course.